This week, the picture quality isn't that great because I am sitting in a place and I have other stuff around me, so I have it zoomed in at 1.7x. I'm going to be doing a video talking about the modular layout. Right now, look who just jumped on my lap. And she's wet because she's been bathing and I don't want her on me. Sit over there. There. Be on the side. There you are. Come here. Just baby your face. There you go. And once I'm done rearranging the living room, I'll have a better backdrop. My chair will be over there. I'm sitting on the couch right now. It was over there. It's now over here. This piece of furniture is turned around. And I'll be most likely sitting filming with the cabinet of TV show DVDs behind me. But right now I'm sitting on the couch with it zoomed in, so you can't see the mess from rearranging everything. This is going to be Layout Discussion Episode 4. I'm going to be talking about the modular layout. And I have my script, and usually it's behind the camera, but it's right here on the computer on my lap. Now, I know it's odd for someone who cannot really afford one layout to build two layouts, but that's what I am doing. This one was brought about by the December 21st, 2021 illegal demolition of the 1912 BR&P Main Street Freight Depot in Warsaw, New York. This modular layout will be roughly 20 feet long and will be in 4 foot long, 2 foot or 2.5 foot deep modules so it can be transported to be displayed if so requested. It will be built with 1x4 framing with 2-inch foam insulation under the scenery. The subject of the layout is an industrial branch built by the Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh in 1911 to serve industries in the valley floor in Warsaw, New York. Since industry started and the railroads came to Warsaw, freight had to be hauled up the hills to either the Erie Railroad on the West Hill or the Rochester and State Line, and then Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh on the East Hill. This was not only inconvenient but inefficient. The oldest industry in Warsaw was a foundry that started in 1824. This was located well away from where the railroad would build their branch almost 100 years later. This originally used bog iron ore to make iron for plows and such. Eventually this was replaced by iron ore brought in from mines, though when this happened is not said in historical records, at least none that I could find. The business had grown by 1851 to a size of 96 feet along the street and went back 34 feet with 2 stories. The furnace was 60 feet by 34 feet and was making stoves and agricultural products under the name of Warsaw Furnace. This became Variety Machine Company in 1882. This company made machinery for the Crystal Salt Works after their 1888 and 1891 fires. They continued doing this and repairing machinery for the National Salt Company that bought all the salt works in Warsaw until all salt mines except Worcester Salt in Silver Springs closed. The company that got into elevator manufacturing in 1889 and changed the name to Warsaw Elevator Company. The company got into elevator manufacturing, not that got into, in 1889 and changed their name to Warsaw Elevator Company in 1892, which became their main business after the salt companies in Warsaw closed in the late 1890s. Unfortunately, this is out of focus. Oh well. It's not going to do any better. Because I'm so far away from the camera. The Warsaw Elevator Company expanded in 1911 by building a 2-story vault on the office building for storage. All this time, anything shipped out or brought into the business, including coal, ore, steel, wood, etc., all had to be transported by draft teams up the hill to the railroad on the East Hill, several blocks away to the freight depot. All other businesses in the village, except a few that were on the hill, had to do the same until 1911 when the Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh built a switchback from the end of their siding up on the hill down to the valley floor and then back to the Embury Lantern Company. This branch was extended in 1912 to serve the Warsaw Elevator Company and again that same year for the new freight depot just north of the elevator factory. This branch would allow everything to be shipped to and from the factory to be right there, eliminating the need for the draft teams to haul freight up and down the hill. Among the commodities that would be moved in this line was pig iron, gray iron, semi-steel, sand, coke, coal, limestone, lumber, elevators, merchandise, and more for the various businesses not only on the branch but also in the village of Warsaw and likely other places around. A loading ramp was along a track near the depot, which would have allowed the delivery of farm machinery and possibly automobiles at some point, but I have not been able to find out what all went through the freight depot. A couple more structures I will be modeling, which will probably require scratch building, is a 26-foot by 56-foot one-story blacksmith shop and the 36-foot by 80-foot one-story casting shop. In 1911, all wooden buildings on Main Street were replaced by brick buildings, so since I'll be modeling this in 1920 and 1960, I'll have the brick structures, which were photographed later, proving easier to recreate as photography was much more common after 1920 than before. Another structure that will go in this area is a gas station. This will have to be removable. It was built in 1930 by the Kendall Refining Company, so it wasn't there for the first 10 years of the layout's era. A new office was built in 1955 by the Watson Elevator Company, who purchased it that same year. I am not sure if I'll have this office even modeled, since it was only there for 5 years of the time I'm recreating. The elevator factory closed a mere 5 years after the 1960 end of the layout's era, which is partly the reason I chose 1960. And also the freight depot, I've been unable to confirm that was used after 1960. The BR&P office in the depot closed at that time. It was actually B&O, but... And they moved the office to the passenger depot or the other freight depot on the hill. And the last source I can find says that they would continue to handle freight downtown, but I can't find the year they ended service to the freight depot or the rest of the line. The elevator company had also kept the foundry in business doing other work besides elevators, but this closed in 1963. So 1960 is really the last year the line would have had a lot of business. The freight depot is the main focus of this layout, but the Warsaw Elevator Company will be the largest buildings. This depot is 32 feet deep and 121 feet long, with 4 freight doors on each side when built. It used pressed brick and Warsaw bluestone for the walls, with French-style Ludovice Lodon tile forming the roof, which rose to a 32-foot gable, making a structure that was both Spanish and French architecture. Records show that the lawn that exists today was, when planted, 80 feet deep from Main Street and 190 feet along Main Street, with a 20-foot wide cinder driveway south of the lawn and a 30-foot cinder driveway between the lawn and the depot, allowing for loading and unloading of freight from wagons and then trucks. The tracks were east of the depot, between it and the Uatka Creek, and records show this had one track right along the depot's platform, and then a driveway followed by a second track, and then another driveway between it and the last track, which had a wooden loading ramp. The depot had a 25-foot-long, 4-foot-high sign on the roof that read Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh Freight Station, but the only photo I have so far of this sign is blocked by a tree, so I'll have to try and find more photos to accurately model this. Now, I had mentioned that this construction was 121 feet long with 4 doors. This, however, was when it was built. The depot experienced a fire in 1915, and the south end was torn off, which makes a 121-foot-long measurement pretty useless to me, as I have to build this shorter, and I have not been able to find out how long it was after the section was torn off. There was a lot of information I have here, but there's also a lot I have to find out. The elevator factory is going to be built as a copy of the rebuildings as I can from the Sanborn 1928 and 1942 maps. This will be the office with its vault, if I can find a photo of the vault and interior details. The machine shop, electrical assembly, locker room, steel storage, stock room, erecting shop, sand shed, scrap shed, foundry, casting shop, and other buildings with the proper floors. Some were cement, some were earth. The floor of the foundry was earth. The floor of the erecting shop and woodworking shop was wood over cement, while the rest of the floors in the Main Street buildings were cement. The erecting shop and woodworking shop had a wood roof on steel truss, as did the machine shop, but the machine shop had a cement floor without wood over it. The buildings between these, which were the stock room, blacksmith shop, and steel storage, were a cement floor with a wooden roof on wooden trusses. Also in this area was the old office, which was replaced with a brick and tile washroom, though at this time I don't know the year this was done or the particulars on its construction. Only they used brick and tile, and it was done between 1919 and 1928. The foundry was, as I said, earth floors. The 1919 Sanborn map does not list roof materials, and I have not been able to closely study the 1928 map. The company also had a boiler house. This was brick walls with cement floors, making it fireproof. This building, besides the boiler, had a patterned storage room, shading storage room, and an oil house. This was built in 1917, and while the map says it had an oil house, this is where the coal or heating would have been delivered. Coal for heating would have been delivered. Possibly later, tank cars delivered oil there. Along the length of this is a creek, and the railroad crosses the creek, which I have yet to figure out how I'm going to model this, as not only does the railroad have to cross the creek, the industries after the creek, heading south, change to the east side of the tracks, which to be accurate means I have to angle 2 to 3 modules, which I don't have space to do. I will have to figure this out as I go. I am sure, or something will come to me as I build. The depot and factory will fit on 2.5 foot by 4 foot modules. The rest of the branch will take some thought as a configuration of industries in the creek, make it impossible to have the track simply going straight and turning the creek without making an odd-shaped layout that jogs over, taking up 5 foot wide of space, which wouldn't fit set up in my house. I have not yet researched the other 2 industries. These are the piano factory and the lumber yard that also receive coal. The power for this so far is to be steam until 1952. From 1952 to 1960, I'm not sure what locomotive I'll use. Of course, starting out, the locomotives used will be whatever I have on hand and feel like using, including the NYSW-8-40B 4024. It will probably be a long time before you get steam locomotives, as they are expensive and I need specific ones. One option I have is the B&O E27 280. These were built in 1905 to 1910 and were retired in 1949 to 1953, mostly, but B&O E27 2695 and E27B 2783 were retired in 1957. Another option is the E24 280. These were built in 1902 and 1903, and at least 3 examples lasted until 1955. The F units might be the power for 1955 to 1960 or 1957 to 1960, depending on any photos I find in that era. Rolling stock will be open hoppers, boxcars, flat cars, gondolas, mostly boxcars, and all switches will be facing point. No runaround is needed, as a train would have come down the hill with a locomotive on the lead and then shoved to the industries. I imagine a caboose was probably used in the train, so that will make switching a little more interesting, especially at the freight depot where all 3 tracks would have cars on them and no real space to put anything. This project is small, but because it is historical recreation, the details and time I will be investing to make it a scale copy make it an ambitious first project. I have already collected a decent amount of era-specific rolling stock for the layout, and will probably be adding to that on April 3rd at the Batavia Train Show. But in the beginning, I will be using everything I have except for covered hoppers, meaning 50-foot boxcars will be seen in the layout once I get it built. Currently, I'm working on getting housework done, which will allow me to put this together downstairs, where it is heated, and I will move it upstairs when the heat decks to the second floor are connected. I have that Blair Line ramp that I bought from MTS that will be the ramp to the freight depot. I will probably also get the freight dock that goes with it, as the ramp went across the end of the 3rd track. Other structures, I'm not sure how I will do them. It depends on what kits I find. Currently, I have to scratch build all buildings. This might change in time. But that's the modular layout, which will be a little that's what the modular layout will be, and a little history on why the prototype was built. It will be a purely switching layout with nowhere for trains to go besides staging. It will give me something to operate while I work on the barn layout over the next 400 to 500 years.